Peter Thiel co-founded PayPal. He was one of the very first investors in Facebook. If anyone knows a lot about big tech and its power and its potential dangers, it's Peter Thiel. So it means something when he warns that Google, the world's most powerful company, has become a threat to American national security. They may even have committed treason, he says. While speaking at the National Conservatism Conference in Washington yesterday, Thiel warned that Google may have been infiltrated by Chinese intelligence and ought to be subject to immediate investigation by the FBI and the CIA. We're happy to have Peter Thiel join us tonight. Peter, thanks a lot for coming on.
So, thanks for having me.
What did you mean when you said that?
Well, it was just in the form of a set of questions I asked where, artificial intelligence is something people talk about nonstop in Silicon Valley, but they almost never talk about its dual use. If it's real, if this is a real thing, it obviously can also be used by the military. It'll be weaponized in all sorts of ways, and it's an important national security question as to who has it. There's this very peculiar background where Google is working with the Chinese communist government and not with the U.S. military. So the Project Maven decision was a decision not to work with AI with the U.S. military, but they're working with the communist Chinese. And so the question is, from the outside is just what in the world is going on there? And I sort of suggested a few different possibilities, but I think it's been they've described it as a Manhattan Project for AI. And so if you go around broadcasting that you're building the Manhattan Project for AI, I would think this naturally would draw the attention of foreign intelligence agencies. I think the Chinese are competent enough that the Ministry of State Security is likely to have infiltrated Google. And then I think the Google management has sort of a decision of either letting the software go out the front door or figuring it'll get stolen anyway and go out the back door.
When you say you believe that Chinese state security is likely to have infiltrated Google, what does that
well,
mean?
If you say you're building a Manhattan Project for AI, don't you think that would attract the interest of foreign intelligence agencies?
Yes.
Yes. This is just hidden in plain sight, and then they are. Well, I think there are sort of all these ways that Chinese nationals are engaged in espionage in the U.S. It's It's understandable that China is doing that. They see themselves in a very serious competition with the U.S. But we're not particularly on our guard about it. And if you have sort of a series of super futuristic tech projects that you broadcast the whole world, it's at least a suspicion. And then the weird fact that's indisputable is that Google is working with communist China, but not with the U.S. military on its breakthrough AI technology. Well, that's the question. I mean, I think one explanation is they figure they have to, because if they don't give it to them through the front door, it'll get stolen through the back door. So first answer is they have to, and then I think of course there's probably a broad base of Google employees that are ideologically super left-wing, sort of woke, and think that China's better than the U.S. or that the U.S. is worse than China. It's more anti-American than anything.
But this is, by definition, a threat to American national security, as you point out. So if Sundar Pichai was sitting right here, what would you say to him?
Well, I would say, answer my three questions. How many foreign intelligence agencies have infiltrated Google? Have the Chinese in particular infiltrated? And why are you working with communist China and not the U.S.? What is the reason you're doing that?
Why do you think the questions you raise, and this is not in any way to minimize their importance, are kind of obvious questions? Why hasn't the U.S. government ascertained the answers?
Well, it's possible that there are people in the U.S. government looking into it and they haven't told us. But yeah, I think the FBI and CIA would be the natural places to look into it. The FBI would look at it from the domestic side. The CIA would look at it from the outside in, and would try to look at seeing if from the outside there are people controlling people inside Google or.
So as someone this is almost rhetorical, but as someone who's built a lot of companies, as you have, do you think it would have been possible to incubate and grow a company like Google in China?
I don't think. I think the U.S. is still better at innovation and at starting things, but it certainly can be copied and replicated.
Right.
And something like this is true of all the breakthrough technologies we have. Most of them are still originating and developing in the West, but they don't give us much of an advantage if they get transferred, in a matter of a few years, if not a matter of months.
So I have to ask you, I assume you're watching the Democratic primaries unfold. Who's the most impressive candidate in that race, do you think?
Well, I'm most scared by Elizabeth Warren. I think she's the one who's actually talking about the economy, which is the only thing that I think the thing that I think matters by far the most.
Yes.
And then I think almost all the others are equally unimpressive in the sense that it's all identity politics of one flavor or another. And I wouldn't want to rank how unimpressive they are, since you'd be forcing me to rank the different identities and which one's more privileged and more special, and that would be a dangerous thing to get into.
It's hard to know. But
I think Elizabeth Warren's the dangerous one.
I think that's right. Peter Thiel, it's great to see you. Thank you.
Thanks.